Thank you for joining us today at Wildly Undivided. If you enjoy these studies, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. So this is miscellaneous Proverbs. So the author Koheleth has gotten to a point in the story where he's just writing down some pithy sayings. We went through it last week. We talked about words. We talked about the fool's heart and what it does and what it leans to the left instead of the right, and all that good stuff. He continues a similar process of thoughts. And so some of this is going to connect to last week's lessons, but verse 1 says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." What is that? Cast your bread upon the waters. If you had to grasp an interpretation out of the air and just say like, this obviously means this, what would you say it means? You guys said some interesting things. So, fishing. Would you think that this is talking about the forgiveness of sins? Like, hey, I'm a murderer and I need God to forgive me, so I'll throw some bread on the water? No. So years ago, I was speaking to a Jew who is Jewish in a religious manner, right? There's Jewish who's religious, and then there's Jewish by blood, right? It's a bloodline. It's like a strain of people, right? I asked him, I said, hey, since you don't have the temple to sacrifice animals to get the forgiveness of sins, because without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. So what do you do to get the forgiveness of sins? And he's like, oh, well, we have a ceremony where we take bread and we cast it on the water. He quoted this text. Now, I knew enough of the Bible to be like, that just sounds strange to me, right? But at the time, I didn't really know much else. Now, does that mean that that's a very common Jewish thing? I don't know. I don't know if it's found in the Talmud, that they, like their lessons and their teachings, their traditions that they follow. I don't know if that's something that's in there or if it's more like this guy and maybe a small group of people. But I found it fascinating that they took a random text, turned it into a tradition, and said it has this really significant meaning when the text itself doesn't have that meaning. Well, we want the forgiveness of sins because we all know we need our sins to be forgiven, but how do we get there? Well, I found this text in the Bible and it says. So I thought it was interesting. A little bit of a history for me, some context. Every time I read this, I'm reminded of that. Cast your bread upon the waters. We think of casting as like throwing away, but in the Hebrew, it's more of sending. It's to ship, it's to package, prepare, and send. Okay, so he's saying, take your bread and send it, and it will return to you after many days. And so the commentary I read is focused on saying that this is more like taking a product, taking a resource that you have, and sending it away in the hopes of gaining profit and getting something back, right? So, and that also goes into verse 2. You would send your merch and receive the benefits of it. You're kind of investing in that business or whatever it might be, and therefore it would come back to you after many days. It's kind of that philosophy of you are sort of sacrificing or trying to produce something that has greater value in the future. And then in verse 2 it says, give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disasters may happen to you. So dividing the portions sevenfold or even 8 is to separate and delineate and say, hey, I'm going to invest in this over here and this here and this here and this here. Why? Why would you diversify? Why would you say, hey, I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket, but I'm going to separate it into multiple baskets, even 7 to 8? Why would you do that? Less risk. One egg may not hatch while others will. We don't know what tomorrow holds, right? So if you're going to sow your field with one type of grain, if you're going to put one type of seed in there, well, it might be a really bad year for that one crop. So it's better to have 2, 3, 7 different types of crops so that if one fails, at least you have other resources that would provide for you, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. But verse 3, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. If a cloud is full, what is it going to do? It's going to rain. Can you control it? No. If a tree is going to fall, it's either going to go to the north or to the south. Can you control it? No, it's going to lie there. It's going to be what it is. So there's a inside joke between my wife and I, but it's a very common thing that we say is it is what it is. There's just some things that are a part of life, and when it happens, it happens. And when you run into those situations, it's the rain that has been held in the clouds. It's raining. What are you going to do? It is what it is. The tree has fallen. It is what it is. It's going to lie where it is. Does that make sense? So you can see kind of the theme of these first 3 verses generally lining up. We're sending our bread and it'll return to us. We're separating 7 to 8 times because we don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. And you know what? When the clouds are full, it's going to rain. When the tree falls down, it's going to be there. It is what it is. So it's all about tomorrow. It's all about today. It's all about circumstances that we can't necessarily control them. We can control what we can, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So you could imagine that if you experience some hardships in life, if you've experienced some difficulties, I think that can make us a little gun shy. Say, hey, I went out and I kind of gambled a little bit and I played a little bit of risk and I lost and it hurt and I suffered. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to send my bread. I don't want to divide my portion. He says in verse 4, he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. What is that verse talking about? So we're talking about sowing and reaping, which is to go out into the field and take last year's crop, the thing that you're eating that's sustaining your life, and sacrificing it. You're like, oh, I hope tomorrow will be great. So I'm going to put the seeds that would give me food for today. I'm going to plant that in the ground. I'm going to sow it into the ground for hope that it will rise. But he's saying here that they're not sowing and they're not reaping. Why would they not sow? Analysis paralysis. I need everything to be perfect for me to invest in this thing. I need the clouds to read perfectly, and I need the weather to be just right. And there's a problem with that. We don't live in a perfect world. There is no such thing as perfect. So I'll give you an example. We bought a house. And it's been great. It's been a great investment, right? There's been ups and downs and difficulties. You believe me, we spent too much money on it. But everybody who is looking at the wind and saying, oh, no, the forecast is negative. The forecast is bad. Nobody invested. They didn't get involved because of fear and anxiety. When there is never a perfect time, you simply have to pull the trigger. It's as good as it's ever going to be. Do the best to analyze, to recognize, and to see, but don't get stuck. You have to take a step forward. You have to sow. If you don't plant your fields, you won't have a harvest in 6 months. If you don't take the effort to put the energy in, even if it doesn't look right, you won't reap. There is no reward. You have to do something. So you send your merch, you divide your portions. It is what it is, and don't be afraid. If you sow, you will reap at least something. It might not be the best harvest, but at least you'll reap something. What we learned last week was that Ecclesiastes 10:10, if the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength, but wisdom helps one to succeed. We talked about planning. We talked about preparation. You need to be prepared to make these decisions. If you're going to buy a house, you need a down payment. Where are you going to get your down payment? If you're going to buy a house and you're going to borrow money and not pay cash, you need good credit. Well, how do you get credit? There's basic building blocks to accomplishing these things. Back in their day, it would be like, we need to sow the field. Okay, well, you don't sow your field in February in the winter. You sow your field in March in the spring. You know when to sow. But if you're saying, well, winter's going an extra week long and summer's coming an extra week early and you're trying to time it just right, you just got to get your stuff in the ground at some point. You can't get stuck trying to overthink everything. You have to simply do your best to plan, to prepare, and then you just have to pull the trigger. You have to say, no matter what's happening, here we go. Like you're going on a road trip. And you're going to be away from your house for 3 weeks. That's a long time. Are you prepared? Okay, I hope so. But the day has come. You get in the car and you go. And then you're like, whoops, forgot my cell phone. It happens, right? Oh, I forgot my charger. No toothbrush. So what do? You figure it out. You don't cancel the trip. You don't turn around 3 days in being like, I got to go get my cell phone. No, you buy a temporary one, or you use your wife's, or whatever it might be, right? There's always a solution to a problem, and there's always going to be problems. I think maybe that's the point. There's always going to be a problem. No matter what you do, there's going to be problems. It's not going to be easy. Nothing's easy. Because if it was easy, it'd be easy. These studies are recorded live with God's people. We encourage you to find a study in a Bible-believing and teaching church and connect with God's people in God's Word. Have a blessed day. Okay, verse 5. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. The moment of conception, the spirit of a human being is inside of the woman as an individual being, but then the child itself has another spirit. And so these two spirits are together in this human. And we don't know how that functions. Science can't tell us about the spirit. And so there's a limited understanding to human beings because God is spirit and He creates and does all of these things. So just like we can't understand that moment of conception when God births another spiritual being, we can't understand all of His works. He's always doing more than we think. He's always bigger than we expect. And He's much more powerful than we can even imagine. And so God, in His creation, as He is working, we can barely perceive it. We can barely understand it. So what do we need? We need faith. We don't live by sight, but by faith. We can't behold what's happening inside the womb, right? What's amazing is we actually can nowadays. You can see the little baby growing. After 3 weeks, they got hands and feet. Itty bitty, like they're this big, but they have a full hand and full feet after 3 weeks. This magnificent creature that has been hidden for us from centuries and millennia, we can now see it with ultrasounds and the imagery that we have. But imagine back in their day, like all of a sudden a woman gets pregnant. There's signs of pregnancy. There's the morning sickness and all the things. And then all of a sudden she's showing and people just know there's a human being in there. There's a baby in there. But they can't see how God is knitting them together, how God is creating this creation. And so it is, we do not know the work of God who makes everything. God makes everything. We can't know. We're limited. We're restricted in our understanding. And so we believe, we trust in Him. We have faith in Him. 6, in the morning, sow your seed, and at evening, withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. So this is similar to verse 5. He's saying, sow it in the morning, sow it in the evening, and both might be good. One might be bad, one might be good. So imagine you had to go fishing. So when is the best time to go fishing? It depends. That's such a great answer. Because sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the evening, and it depends on the fishing hole. Depends on the fish you're going for. So what he's saying is, we always need to be preparing and planting and doing something, right? If you want a good future, you have to build it every moment, every day. You do it in the morning, you do it in the evening, you do it at lunchtime. Everything we do all the time is preparing our future. And we don't know exactly how this is going to play out. Maybe getting up in the morning, let's say you're trying to go to college and you're studying. Raphael, you would know this. Maybe get up first thing in the morning and you're more successful studying in the morning. Well, for me, I study better at night. But I used to think, if you're extra godly, all the real saints, they wake up, 3 a.m. in the morning and they study real early. You're not a real Christian unless you're studying at 3 a.m. But then I discovered no, I'm actually more of a night owl. And 3 a.m., that dog don't hunt. At night though, man, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm connecting with God, it's great. Or I'm studying for math class and I'm crushing those questions. Who knows? Maybe the morning's best, maybe the evening's best. So consistency is key. Building a meaningful, purposeful life, an impactful life is all about consistency. It's making small decisions throughout the day that are consistently good. That's it. It's not about doing one big thing every day. It's like working out. You're better off doing 10 squats every hour instead of doing 100 squats in 15 minutes. Verse 7, light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. What do you guys know about the sun? It is so good for you. The sun is God's blessing to mankind. I'll tell you what, we have been told to hide from the sun, but the sun is actually really, really good. So sunlight in your eyes, not like staring at the sun, but by just going outside and getting sunlight. It brightens your mind. It makes you alert. It actually makes your body release endorphins and things that wake you up, that make you feel good, ready to go, feel active. This is actually what our computer screens do when we're trying to go to bed. It's sending signals into our eyes and it says, wake up, time to wake up. And that's why you watch your screen all day long and then you go to bed and you wonder why you can't sleep. Well, you just had, a very limited sunlight hitting your eyes. Also, vitamin D deficiency is about 50% of the population. 50% of the population have a deficiency in vitamin D. What is vitamin D good for? Calcium, hormone regulation, mood modulation. So vitamin D actually lifts up your mood. It makes you feel better. So by taking vitamin D, you can actually take it as like an antidepressant. Getting outside and getting into the sun is a powerful tool to simply living a good life. And this is what he's saying right here. Look, he's like, can you imagine this person who doesn't have TV, doesn't have the internet, doesn't have any friends, all he does is he farms all day, and he wakes up and he goes outside and he's just like, what a beautiful day. I love the sunlight. Could you imagine how boring it is at night at this time? Well, maybe reverse that. You go outside, you actually see the stars. It's not as boring as it is for us. You go outside and you're like, oh, it's black. Have you ever seen a night sky with real stars? Just millions of stars? It's amazing. Okay, so we don't get that privilege, especially living in Vegas. But the sun is powerful. It is meaningful. And so going out and making the sun a part of your life changes things. Just look at this. Look at my tan. It's a real good tan. Every other day, I spend about 20 minutes in the sun. I just hang out. And I feel great. Verse 8. So, if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Now we're back. Here's Koheleth, back to vanity and vanity of vanities. Everything's useless. He's a little pessimistic. He just came out of the sunlight, man. Where's your optimism? So he says, if a person lives many years, let him rejoice. That's a very constant theme throughout the book. Enjoy the small things. Rejoice in your many years. But remember this, the days of darkness will be many. What is darkness? We'll come into the next verse too when he talks about youth. I think we all see it. When you're young and vibrant, you have lots of energy, and you think life is terrible. You're like, I can't do anything. I'm not old enough to do all of these things I want to do. And then you finally get old enough and you're like, I don't have any money. I can't do anything. And you just think life is terrible. But life is so good. You don't even know because you're caught up in this negative mindset. So he's saying, hey, rejoice. Rejoice. You have such a blessing from God. You're alive. Even if life is not perfect, it's good. But be mindful, it kind of goes downhill. Your health goes downhill. You're going to lose people you love. You're going to have difficulties with loved ones and marriage and death and sickness. And you're going to have bad crops. You're going to have bad jobs. You're going to have bad people. You're going to have crime. You're going to have all of these things. And you know what? You're going to fall apart. We all get old. It's inevitable. And we'll cover that in the next verse as well. And so that's kind of the many days of darkness is kind of this everything's awesome and amazing. But remember, it's going to get hard. There's going to be difficulty on the back end. Be prepared for it. Learn how to accept difficulty. Learn how to receive trials and tribulations so that you can rejoice in the goodness of God, even during times of difficulty. We all plan on aging gracefully. We all want to live generally forever in this perfect world of what we think life should be. But if you don't have a realistic perspective about what the future really holds for us, you're going to struggle. I think that's a midlife crisis. Like if you're not prepared to recognize that you're going to have a crisis, it's going to be bad when it hits. You're going to go bananas. But if you say, hey, like I get it, I'm 30, everything's amazing, but when I start getting in my 40s, when I start getting in my 50s, I'm probably going to start thinking I'm getting old and things hurt. And the kids are going to look at me and be like, what do you want, old man? And now I'm going to start questioning myself, and I actually might have a midlife crisis. So you know what I'm going to do in my 30s? I'm going to prepare for my 50s. I'm going to be ready to get old. It's a matter of life. There's days of darkness ahead. I know it. Verse 9, rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. This is probably one of the most wise things an older person can tell a younger person. Hey, not every decision is a good decision. Hey, I know it feels like that's the thing that you should be doing now, but you probably shouldn't. That's not going to be good for you in the long run. Hey, that's bad, that's wrong, and you don't want to do it. There's going to be consequences. So an older person with the knowledge of all of these things looks at a young person and says, hey, I get it. Your eyes, you see these things and you want them, and your heart desires them. And it's good. If it's a good thing, go after it. Enjoy it. Rejoice in it. But remember this, God will hold you accountable for the choices you make. So that can be temporal. That can be here on this earth. That's like an STD, right? You're like, oh, well, it's not that big a deal. I'm just going to go sleep around and do whatever I want. And so, now you got an STD. What are you going to do with that? You've received the consequences of what your heart desired and what your eyes longed for. And the consequences are a sexually transmitted disease. So that's painful. That's difficult. That's a consequence. That's temporary on this planet. What about eternal? What about that next layer where it says, actually, you've envied in your heart, you've coveted in your heart, you've murdered in your heart, you've lusted in your heart, you've sinned against God, and there is now a judgment that He will hold you to. He's going to say, you knew my commandments, and you purposefully disobeyed them. I'm going to hold you accountable. So, enjoy being young. Enjoy what your eyes see and your heart longs for, but be careful because God will bring you into judgment. I said, live well, but be aware of eternal consequences. And verse 10, remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body. I think we have a lot of modern language that would define this, more of like anxiety, stress, frustration. It's kind of fits of fury. Vexation is like getting into a frenzy and getting all energetic in anger or frustration or panicking. Like panic attacks would be like a vexation. It's your heart in a manic mode. Manic means high. It's this like a high vibration that you're tense and you're struggling, vexation. So he says, remove that. Set yourself up to live a peaceful life. Try to aim for low stress, low anxiety, low frustration, low anger and pain. Why? Because youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Okay, maybe we just go back. When we were children, what were the things that would frustrate you the most? When you couldn't do something? I want to go downtown. No. And you just get so mad. I want that, what do they call Stanley thermoses? I want a Stanley thermos. No. When you don't get your way, I'm trying to think of like things I really wanted as a kid. Wheelies. I want some wheelies so I can wheelie with my shoes. No. When you're a kid, I think we all manage, well, everybody's a little different, but there's a certain level of vexation where we just feel like we're stuck in a box and you want to get out and you're just fighting against the wall. That's vexation. And so if we could go back and tell ourselves, I think we'd say, whoa, slow your roll, dude. Like, your life is great. You have food, you have shelter, you don't have bills. You don't got to worry about like all the things every adult has to worry about. You got it good, right? We would want to tell ourselves that. But the reality is, you can't perceive it as a child. You have to grow through those things. And so wisdom is moving through that quickly. You ever see adults who act like children and everything frustrates them? They are like always angry or frustrated or just blowing up, or they're not managing life well. And it makes you think, what were you like when you were a 5-year-old? Because you're acting like you're a 5-year-old. Like you never got past that phase. And I think that's what he's talking about. Remove vexation from your heart and pain from your body. The youth of the dawn of life is vanity. Everything you had as a child is gone. It's time to grow up and live that peaceful adult life of being satisfied with the circumstances. Like it is what it is. The tree has fallen. We've landed on the north. We've suffered the loss of these things, and we weren't raised a certain way, or we didn't have certain experiences, or life has been difficult because of whatever's happened. It's like, well, remove those things. Get rid of them. Let it go. Find peace and enjoy what you have left, because the darkness is still ahead of you. I have a saying that I would say at work. As I move up in my company and my life gets just more and more stressful, the way that I comfort myself, do you remember what I've told you guys this before. Do you remember what I tell myself? It only gets worse. I feel like I'm in a really tough situation. I vented a little bit to Ruth last night and she's just like, oh, dang. And it only gets worse. Like no matter how bad my life is now or how stressful my job is or how difficult all these things are, guess what? It can't be that bad because something far worse is in front of me, not behind me. I don't have to get through this. I have something harder I need to get to. It's as good as it's gonna get. Life only gets harder. So be at peace with what you got. What can we take away? What's some good applications? So I put preparing and praying. We can pray or we can prepare as much as possible, but ultimately where that tree lies or when the wind comes or when the rain falls, there's not much we can do. So we prepare, but we pray, we trust, we seek the Lord. We say, God, these are the plans I'd like to do, but if you send the rain early, then I guess I'll just live with your decisions, right? So preparing and praying. So youthful living is good with responsibility. Living an exciting, fun, engaging life is good with responsibility. Not with recklessness or an overwhelming debauchery of sin, right? Because there's going to be judgment. Don't stress. We will all grow old, Lord willing. We don't know what tomorrow holds. Why freak out over it? Today's worries are enough. We don't need tomorrows with them, right? Next week, last chapter in Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, the end of the matter.